The oven door slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed through the empty kitchen like a gunshot, sending a puff of flour into the air that settled on Brinley's lashes like unshed tears. "You're done here, Bryn. Pack your things and get out, before I call the sheriff and make this official," spat Harlan Whitaker, his face twisted in the kind of righteous fury only small-town hypocrisy could brew, his meaty fist pounding the scarred oak counter where generations of dough had risen. In that instant, as the words hung heavier than the scent of burnt sugar, Brinley realized the life she'd needed into this place. Her hands callous from years of midnight shifts, her heart woven into every flaky croissant, had crumbled under the weight of a whispered rumor about who she loved. Brinley Harper had always believed that the best stories started in the dark, just before dawn, when the world was still wrapped in that hush of possibility. In the high desert town of Las Cruces, New Mexico, where the sun-baked adobe walls whispered secrets of old Spanish missions and the Rio Grande carried the ghosts of conquistadors, the air carried a dry sweetness at 4 a.m., laced with the promise of chiles roasting on comal griddles and the faint tang of pinyon smoke from distant campfires. It was here, in the heart of Whitaker's Panaderia y Pasteleria, that Brinley had found her rhythm. The bakery, with its faded sign painted in curling script red letters on sun-bleached wood, had stood on Main Street since 1923, a stubborn relic amid the strip malls and dusty pickups. To Brinley, it wasn't just a job. It was a sanctuary, where the alchemy of flour and fire turned strangers into regulars who lingered over coffee, sharing snippets of their lives like crumbs from a fresh pan de muerto. She was 28, with the kind of easy grace that came from growing up chasing jackrabbits across the Mesilla Valley flats. Auburn hair perpetually dusted with powdered sugar, green eyes that crinkled like sagebrush in the wind when she laughed, and hands that moved like they knew the earth's own pulse. Brinley had inherited her baking from her abuela, who swore the secret to perfect biscuitos lay in whispering prayers to the dough. College had been a fleeting dream, abandoned after her parents' car accident, left her the sole guardian of her little brother, Tommy. So she'd poured her ambitions into rising loaves, turning the bakery into a haven for the town's misfits, the queer kids from the university who snuck in for late-night empanadas, the widowed vaqueros nursing black coffee and regrets. Harlan Whitaker, the owner, was a bull of a man in his late 50s, with a mustache like a broom bristle and eyes narrowed from decades squinting at balance sheets. He'd inherited the place from his father, but where the old man had baked with a poet's touch, Harlan ran it like a ledger. Profits over passion, tradition be damned. Brinley had been his secret weapon, the one who kept the ovens humming through economic droughts and tourist slumps. She innovated quietly. Lavender-infused conchas for the yoga crowd, gluten-free sapapillas that didn't taste like cardboard. Customers raved. Lines snaked out the door on weekends. But Harlan's wife, Evelyn, a pinched-lipped woman who volunteered at the church bake sales, had caught wind of the whispers. Brinley and her friend from Albuquerque, the one who'd visited last summer with tattoos snaking up her arms and a laugh that filled the dining room like sunlight. It started small, a sidelong glance from Evelyn during Sunday Mass at Our Lady of Guadalupe, where the congregation still murmured about the sodomites infiltrating the pews from the state university. Then came the anonymous note slipped under the bakery door. God sees your sin and so do we. Repent or leave. Brinley burned it in the oven, watching the flames lick the edges until it curled to ash. She told herself it was just the wind of small-town bigotry, the same gust that had chased her uncle out in the 80s for loving another man. But denial has a way of rising like overproof dough, until it spills over. The confrontation came on a Tuesday, the bakery's slowest day, when the lunch rush had ebbed and the afternoon sun slanted through the lace curtains like accusatory fingers. Brinley was elbow-deep in a batch of cinnamon churros, the oil sizzling in the fryer, when Harlan burst through the swinging door from the office. His face was thundercloud red, veins bulging at his temples. Evelyn trailed behind, clutching her purse like a shield, her lips pursed in that way that said she'd already won the battle in her prayers. Brinley Harper, Harlan growled, his voice low enough not to carry to the front counter where old Mrs. Ruiz was thumbing through a magazine. We need to talk. Now. She wiped her hands on her apron, heart thudding like a tamale steamer. What's wrong, Mr. Whitaker? The delivery truck late again. He didn't laugh. Instead, he thrust a crumpled printout at her. A screenshot from the local Facebook group, Las Cruces Faithful, showing a grainy photo of Brinley and her ex Sophia, arms linked at last year's Pride March in El Paso. The caption: "Is this the face of your neighborhood bakery? Boycott Whitaker's." Evelyn's voice sliced in, sharp as a filleting knife. "It's unnatural, Brinley. Disgusting. Bringing that lifestyle into a family place. What about the children who come in here? The example you're setting." Brinley's stomach twisted, but she held her ground, the heat from the fryer warming her back like an old friend's embrace. "Lifestyle? It's my life, Mrs. Whitaker. And I've poured everything into this place. Nights, weekends, my whole damn soul. You can't fire me for who I love." Harlan's fist came down then, the one that shook the counter and scattered a tray of cooling buñuelos like startled birds. "I can and I am. Effective immediately. Clean out your locker and go. And don't think about bad-mouthing us. Las Cruces is small and folks talk." The words landed like a slap, stinging deeper than any physical blow. Brinley's vision blurred, not from tears but from the sheer absurdity of it. The man who'd praised her tres leches cake as better than my mama's, now casting her out like yesterday's stale bread. She wanted to scream, to hurl the fryer oil at their sanctimonious faces, but instead, she untied her apron with trembling fingers, folding it neatly over the counter. "Fine," she whispered, voice cracking like parched earth. "But you'll miss me when your reviews tank and the lines dry up." As she grabbed her jacket from the hook, the bell above the front door tinkled. Emerson Whitaker stepped in, oblivious to the storm brewing in the back. At 32, Emerson was the prodigal daughter returned, tall and poised, with chestnut hair that fell in straight sheets to her shoulders, brown eyes that held the depth of the Chihuahuan desert skies, and a subtle scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall off the corral fence. She'd left Las Cruces a decade ago for law school in Austin, chasing a career in civil rights that kept her far from the family dust-ups. Now on sabbatical after a bruising case against a pipeline company, she'd come home to help with the books, as Harlan put it, though everyone knew it was Evelyn's ploy to reel in the wandering heir. Emerson's gaze flicked to Brinley's face, pale and drawn, then to her parents' rigid postures. "Everything okay back here?" Harlan cleared his throat, mustache twitching. "Just business, Em. Brinley's. Moving on." Brinley couldn't meet her eyes, those eyes that had lingered a beat too long during Emerson's last visit, sparking something unspoken over shared shots of mezcal at the backroom New Year's toast. Instead, she shouldered her bag and pushed past, the scent of vanilla and betrayal clinging to her like a second skin. Outside, the November air bit sharp, carrying the faint jingle of luminarias from the upcoming holiday season. Brinley leaned against the adobe wall, breath coming in ragged gasps, the town square's obelisk mocking her from across the street. A monument to pioneers who'd claimed this land with Bibles and bullets. Fired. For loving a woman. In 2025 in America, in a town that prided itself on its progressive university and craft breweries. The irony burned hotter than any kiln. She didn't cry until she reached her truck. A battered '98 Ford with rust kissing the wheel wells like freckles. Sobs racked her as she gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Tommy was waiting at home, his science fair project half built on the kitchen table, oblivious to the fracture in their fragile world. At 22, he was all lanky limbs and quiet dreams of engineering school, the brother she'd raised from scraped knees and bedtime stories. How would she explain the lost paycheck, the evaporated health insurance? That night, as the desert stars wheeled overhead like indifferent witnesses, Brinley lay awake in her single-wide trailer on the outskirts, the hum of the swamp cooler her only lullaby. Sophia had texted earlier, "Heard what happened. You deserve better. Call if you need." But Brinley deleted it unread. Their breakup last spring had been mutual exhaustion, not fireworks. No, what haunted her wasn't the exes or the bigots. It was the what-ifs. What if she'd fought harder? What if she'd hidden deeper? And Emerson, God, Emerson's face in that doorway. Confusion etching lines that hadn't been there before. Had she seen? Did she care? By morning, resolve hardened in her like cooling caramel. Las Cruces was her home, woven into her veins like the red clay soil. She wouldn't slink away. Harlan thought he could erase her? Fine. She'd rewrite the recipe. The idea sparked over coffee at the diner's counter, where the waitress Rosa, a silver-haired widow with a tattoo of Frida Kahlo on her forearm, slid her a free plate of huevos rancheros. "Mija, that man's a fool. But fools fall hard." Rosa's words lingered as Brinley drove to the bank, her savings account a modest nest egg from years of skipped vacations and side gigs catering quinceañeras. It wasn't much, $47,000 after taxes, but in a town where real estate moved like molasses it might just be enough. The realtor, a slick-haired guy named Mitch with a boello tie and a predatory smile, met her at the Whitaker property that afternoon. Harlan had listed it quietly 2 weeks prior. Desperate to offload debt from a failed expansion into organic quinoa breads that no one bought. Family gem, Mitch drawled, unlocking the back door. But the owner's motivated. Cash offer could close fast. Brinley toured the space with feigned detachment, inhaling the ghosts of cardamom and clove. The industrial mixer she'd named Bessie, scarred from 1,000 batches. The walk-in cooler where she'd once hidden from a hailstorm, laughing with the delivery boy. Upstairs, the tiny apartment Harlan rented out. Vacant now, dust motes dancing in the slatted light. "How much?" she asked, voice steady as rebar. Mitch named a figure, $450,000. Her heart sank, then steadied. With a loan maybe. But she needed leverage, something Harlan wouldn't see coming. That's when she remembered the clause. Years ago, during a slow season, she'd overheard Evelyn boasting about the bakery's legacy lien. A family trust tied to the property, but riddled with unpaid taxes from the 90s recession. Public records were a goldmine. By evening, huddled over her laptop with Tommy dozing on the couch, Brinley uncovered the arrears. $20,000 in back taxes, liens that could force a foreclosure if unpaid. A plan unfurled, petal by petal. She'd buy it anonymously through a shell LLC. Desert Rose Holdings, named for the wildflowers that bloomed defiant after rain. Use her savings as down payment. Leverage the liens to negotiate down. Harlan would think some out-of-state investor was swooping in, not the woman he'd discarded like burnt crust. It took weeks of paperwork, late nights poring over contracts with a pro bono lawyer from the university's LGBTQ clinic. Emerson's firm had referred her, irony of ironies, without knowing the details. Brinley signed the dotted line on a crisp December morning, the notary's stamp sealing her fate like wax on a love letter. Closing day, she watched from her truck across the street as Harlan handed over the keys to Mr. Ramirez, a proxy she'd hired from Albuquerque. His face crumpled, not with regret but resignation, Evelyn's hand on his arm like an anchor dragging him under. Brinley's pulse thrummed. Victory tasted like fresh masa, warm and grounding. But as she drove away, a shadow lingered. Emerson. She'd texted once after the firing, heard from Dad. "I'm sorry. Coffee?" Brinley hadn't replied. Too raw, too close to the bone. Yet in the quiet of her trailer, as snow dusted the Oregon mountains like powdered sugar, she wondered if reclaiming the bakery meant reclaiming herself, or if some doors once slammed stayed shut forever. The first shift as owner felt like stepping into a dream woven from nightmare silk, soft, but liable to unravel at the slightest tug. Brinley arrived at dawn, the LLC paperwork tucked in her glove box like a talisman, her alias Rose Delgado, stitched hastily onto a name tag. The town buzzed with rumors of the sale. By noon, the bakery's Facebook page, still under Harlan's control until the handover, lit up with speculation. Who bought Whitaker's? Some chain from California? Pray it's not. Brinley smiled behind the counter, piping royal icing onto gingerbread saints, her secret bubbling like yeast in warm milk. She'd rehired the skeleton crew quietly, Rosa from the diner as front of house, her nephew Javier on deliveries. No fanfare, just a sign on the door. New management. Same recipes. Come see what's baking. Customers trickled in, wary at first, then warming as the scent of fresh bolillos wafted out. Mrs. Ruiz, the magazine reader, clutched her coffee and whispered, "It's you, isn't it? The one with the magic hands." Brinley winked, sliding her an extra conchus. Word spread like wildfire in dry grass. By week's end, lines formed again, longer than before. Emerson noticed, of course. Home for the holidays, she'd taken to her old routine. Morning runs along the river levee, then a stop at the bakery for a courte-à-deux and the latest gossip. The first time she walked in post-sale, the bell's chime felt like a summons. Brinley was at the register, tallying tips, her hair pulled back in a bandana that did little to hide the flush creeping up her neck. "Rose, right?" Emerson said, leaning on the counter, Her running jacket unzipped to reveal a faded UT Austin tee. Up close, she smelled of eucalyptus soap and desert dust, her scar catching the light like a punctuation mark. Heard you saved the place. Dad's been sulking in the garage, muttering about corporate vultures. Brinley forced a laugh, busying her hands with a rag. Just the local investor with a soft spot for sapapillas. What can I get you? Emerson's eyes narrowed, playful suspicion dancing there. Black coffee, 2 sugars. And the truth, why the secrecy? Afraid of the Whitaker curse. If only she knew. Brinley poured the coffee, steam curling between them like a veil. Some stories are better told in layers. Like phyllo dough, peel too fast and it tears. Emerson lingered, sipping slowly, her gaze tracing the flour smudges on Brinley's cheek. Fair enough. But I've got time. Law school taught me patience, and how to spot a bluff. She left a tip that was too generous, her fingers brushing Brinley's as she took the change. The touch lingered, electric as a summer storm. That night, Brinley replayed it in her mind, pacing the trailer while Tommy blasted indie rock from his room, prepping for his shift at the organic farm. The attraction had simmered since Emerson's returns. Sporadic visits where they'd bond over late-night baking experiments, Emerson's legal mind dissecting Harlan's bad deals while Brinley shaped dough into stars. But Emerson was straight arrow straight, or so the town assumed, dated a string of earnest activists in Austin, men with man buns and manifestos. Brinley had buried her crush deep, fertilizing it with denial until it bloomed into quiet friendship. Now, with the bakery as her fortress, cracks formed. Emerson became a fixture, volunteering for inventory shifts, her laughter filling the kitchen as they wrestled a jammed mixer. "You're a wizard, Rose," she'd say, oblivious to the alias's thorns. Brinley dodged, deflecting with jokes about her mysterious past in Santa Fe. But proximity bred intimacy. One evening as they scrubbed counters side by side, Emerson's hand grazed her waist, steadying her on a stool. "Careful," she murmured, voice low, breath warm against Brinley's ear. The air thickened, charged with the unsaid. Christmas Eve brought the first real snow to Las Cruces, blanketing the town in improbable white, muting the carols from the Zocalo. The bakery stayed open late, serving free tamales to the homeless folks huddled under the portal. Brinley directed the chaos, her apron a canvas of red sauce and joy. Emerson arrived with a bottle of agave wine, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Truce offering," she said, popping the cork. "To new beginnings." They toasted in the walk-in, the cool air nipping at their skin, shelves of proofing racks looming like silent judges. "To not knowing everything," Brinley countered, clinking glasses. The wine warmed her from within, loosening tongues. Emerson talked of her cases, the trans kid fighting for bathroom rights, the indigenous women reclaiming water from agribusiness. "It's why I do it," she said, eyes fierce. "To fix what's broken. Like Dad's stubborn heart." Brinley hesitated then. Some breaks can't be mended with signatures. Sometimes you have to rebuild from the ruins. Emerson set her glass down, stepping closer. The space between them shrank to inches, the hum of the cooler underscoring their breaths. "Is that what this is? Ruins?" Her hand lifted, tucking a stray curl behind Brinley's ear, fingers lingering on her jaw. Time suspended, the world narrowing to the pulse in Brinley's throat, the question in Emerson's gaze. She could reveal everything, the firing, the leans, the ache that had driven her to this gambit. Or she could lean in, taste the wine on Emerson's lips, and damn the consequences. The door banged open, Javier with a tray of pozole, and the moment shattered. Emerson pulled back, flushing, muttering about checking the front. Brinley exhaled, steadying herself against a crate of limes. Close call. Too close. New Year's dawn crisp, the town alive with fireworks over the Oregon foothills. Brinley hosted a staff party in the upstairs apartment, string lights draped over the exposed beams, piñata swinging from the ceiling. Tommy DJ'd, his playlist a mashup of Bad Bunny and Billie Holiday. Emerson came alone, her parents boycotting after Harlan's grumbled refusal to attend. "Their loss," she said, pulling Brinley into a hug that pressed too close too long. As midnight struck, confetti rained, and Emerson's lips brushed Brinley's temple in the crush. "Happy New Year, mystery woman," whispered like a promise. Brinley's resolve frayed. She slipped away to the fire escape, the desert night sprawling below like a rumpled quilt. Snowmelt trickled in the gutters, carrying away the old year's detritus. But secrets she knew had weight, they pooled like runoff eroding foundations. The betrayal came swift as a haboob. Evelyn, ever the church mouse with sharp ears, had been sniffing around town hall, charming clerks with pecan pies for gossip. By mid-January, she'd pieced it together. The LLC's address traced to Brinley's trailer park, the notary a mutual friend from the clinic. Harlan confronted Emerson over dinner, his roar audible from the street. That dyke tricked us. Bought us out with our own dirt. Emerson, fork midway to mouth, froze. Pieces clicked. Rose's familiarity with the recipes, the way she anticipated orders like she'd invented them. And the firing Dad's doing, confessed in a drunken ramble weeks prior. Guilt twisted in her gut, sharp as mesquite thorns. She drove to the bakery in the sleet, tires hydroplaning on the slick roads. The open sign glowed like a beacon, but inside, only Brinley remained, wiping down tables, her face a mask of weary triumph. "You lied," Emerson said, bursting through the door, water dripping from her coat. No hello, no preamble, the words raw edged with hurt. Brinley straightened, rag twisting in her hands. "I survived. There's a difference." Emerson's voice cracked. "Survived? You let me." God, Brinley. All those talks, the almost. Was it a game? Payback for what they did. The use of her real name hit like a revelation, stripping the alias bare. Brinley's eyes welled, but she held firm. Payback. I loved this place before I knew what love meant. Your father took that because of who I am. I took it back. If that's betrayal, then call me Judas. Emerson paced, boots tracking mud across the tiled floor. I defended you. To them after the firing. Said it was wrong, archaic. And you shut me out. She stopped close enough to see the flecks of gold in Brinley's eyes, the tremble in her lower lip. Why? Because it hurt too much. Brinley's voice broke, the dam giving way. You Whitaker. Untouchable. And me? The town queer scraping by. I couldn't risk you seeing the mess. Emerson reached out, cupping Brinley's face, thumbs brushing away a tear. I'm not them. I see you. Have for years. Her forehead pressed to Brinley's, breaths mingling. Let me in. The kiss ignited, slow, tentative. A brush of lips that deepened into hunger, hands fisting in damp wool, the taste of salt and snow. It was absolution and ache, the desert's fierce bloom after drought. They broke apart, gasping, foreheads touching, the world refocusing in shards. But Harlan's truck rumbled outside, headlights cutting the dark like judgment. Evelyn's silhouette in the passenger seat, Bible clutched like armor. The idol shattered. Harlan didn't knock. He hammered, the door rattling in its frame as if he could beat confession from the wood. Open up, Harper. We know you're in there. Squatting like a thief in your own lie. His bellow carried through the glass, drawing stares from the late-night stragglers on Main Street, their breath fogging in the chill. Brinley pulled away from Emerson, heart slamming like a malfunctioning dough hook. Stay here, she murmured, but Emerson shook her head, jaw set in that lawyer's resolve. We're in this together now. Her hand squeezed Brinley's, a lifeline in the storm. They faced the door side by side as Brinley unlocked it, the bell jangling mockingly. Harlan loomed, Evelyn peering over his shoulder like a wraith, her coat buttoned to the throat. Snowflakes melted on their lashes, turning to tears in the warm light. You, Harlan snarled, jabbing a finger at Brinley, tricked us with that fancy LLC bullshit. Lien? Taxes? My own family's dirt used against me. Spittle flecked his mustache, his bulk filling the threshold. Evelyn's gaze darted to their joined hands, then away, cheeks paling. It's the devil's work, Emerson. Come home. This harlot. Stop. Emerson's voice cut like a gavel, stepping forward. She's not a harlot. She's the reason this place didn't fold years ago. Your pride did that, Dad, not her. Harlan's face mottled, betrayal etching deeper lines. My pride? I built this. From nothing. And you siding with her? After everything. Emerson's scar throbbed, a visible pulse of old wounds. Everything? Like firing her for who she loves? In our home? That's not legacy, Dad. That's cowardice. The words hung, heavy as leaden skies. Evelyn whimpered, clutching her husband's arm. The church. The neighbors. They'll never shop here again. You've ruined us. Brinley's grip tightened on Emerson's, drawing strength from the calluses earned in courtrooms, not kitchens. No one's ruined. The bakery's mine now, fair and square. But the door's open. Walk away or stay and see what Grace looks like. Harlan's laugh barked hollow. Grace? From you. But his eyes, those squint-weary eyes, flickered with something softer, perhaps the echo of his father's kindness. He deflated, shoulders sagging under the weight of years. You win, girl. But don't think this ends clean. He turned, Evelyn trailing, their footsteps crunching into the night. The door swung shut, sealing the silence. Emerson exhaled, leaning against the counter. That was intense. Brinley managed a wry smile. Welcome to the family business. But inside, tremors quaked, the confrontation she dreaded, now laced with hope's fragile thread. The fallout rippled like stones in the Rio Grande. By morning, the Las Cruces Sun News ran a front-page story. Local bakery sold in secret deal, fired baker revealed as buyer. Mitch the realtor had loose lips, greased by Evelyn's persistence. Protests brewed outside. A clutch of church ladies with signs, sodomites in cell suites, countered by university students waving rainbows, love bakes all. Brinley fortified the doors with plywood, but the ovens kept firing, her staff a bulwark of loyalty. Emerson moved in upstairs that week. Her Austin sublet surrendered for solidarity. Their nights blurred into domestic poetry. Emerson proofreading briefs by lamplight while Brinley tested recipes, the air thick with yeast and whispered confessions. I dated men because it was easy, Emerson admitted one midnight, tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender linen spray. Safe. But you're the risk that feels like home. Brinley traced the scar on her brow. A map of forgotten falls. And your parents? This isn't Austin. They won't fade into traffic. Emerson's kiss silenced doubt, fierce and affirming. We'll build our own road. But doubt's a persistent weed thriving in arid soil. Tommy, ever the pragmatist, pulled Brinley aside during a flower-dusted lunch. Sis, she's great, but Whitakers, they hold grudges like scorpions hold stings. He wasn't wrong. Harlan's silence festered, manifesting in sabotage. Anonymous calls to health inspectors, complaints about unsafe practices that tied up hours in red tape. Evelyn escalated, rallying the congregation for a boycott, her sermons laced with veiled barbs about false idols and aprons. The climax brewed in February, under a full snow moon that turned the desert silver. The annual Mesilla Valley Wine Festival loomed, the bakery's biggest event, where booths lined the plaza, hawking pairings of Cabernet and cardamom rolls. Brinley had poured her soul into it. A special menu of wine-infused pastries, collaborations with local vintners. Emerson handled the permits, her legal savvy a shield. But on setup day, disaster struck. Javier arrived frantic, truck bed empty. The flour shipment stolen. From the warehouse. Thousands of pounds gone. Brinley's blood iced. Sabotage blatant as a slap. Who had access? Harlan's truck was spotted near the docks last night, Javier muttered. Folks saw it. Rage simmered, but Brinley channeled it into action. Emergency calls to suppliers, scraping barrels for enough to bake half the order. Emerson paced, phone glued to ear, threatening lawsuits. We'll nail him. Trespass, theft. No. Brinley stopped her, hands on shoulders. Not like this. We rise above. The festival dawned brittle, wind whipping the booths like vengeful spirits. Crowds milled, but Whitakers, no Harper's Panaderia now, rebranded in looping script, stood sparse, trays half full. Whispers circled. Heard the old man hit back. Evelyn held court at the church tent, her flock avoiding the sweets like plague. Mid-afternoon, as Brinley frosted the last batch of petite fours, Emerson tugged her aside. Incoming. Brace. Harlan approached, alone, his Stetson clutched in gnarled hands. No bluster, just weariness etching his face like canyon walls. Came to apologize. Sort of. He glanced at the meager line, shame flickering. The truck? That was me. Heat of the moment. Thought it'd hurt, make you sell cheap. Didn't count on you fighting. Emerson stiffened, but Brinley held up a hand. Why? After everything. Harlan's gaze dropped to his boots, scuffed from a lifetime's labor. Pride. And fear. Evelyn's been my rock, but her faith. It's twisted lately. Lost our boy to the war, you know? Iraq. Blames God. Then anyone who strays from the path. His voice roughened. Seeing you strong, unashamed, it stirred up what I buried. My brother. He was like you. Left in 82. Never came back. The confession landed soft. A revelation in the wind. Brinley's anger ebbed, replaced by a profound ache, the shared fractures of families rent by silence. I forgive you, she said simply. But forgiveness isn't free. Help me rebuild. Not for me, for the town. Harlan nodded, slow as dawn. Reckon I owe that. He rolled up sleeves, hawking pastries with a gruff charm that drew crowds. Evelyn watched from afar, her face a war of piety and regret, but she didn't intervene. By dusk the booth overflowed, laughter mingling with the cork pops. Emerson pulled Brinley into a shadowed corner, kissing her under the string lights. You did it. Alchemist. Brinley grinned, tasting victory sweet as crema. We did. But harmony's fragile as spun sugar. That night as they tallied the till upstairs, Emerson's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Come home. Alone. Or lose us forever. The ultimatum hung. A sword over their fragile peace. Emerson stared at the screen until the words blurred. The glow casting harsh shadows across the apartment's adobe walls. Come home. Alone. Or lose us forever. Evelyn's ultimatum, delivered not in sermon fire but cold precision, like a contract clause. Brinley, sensing the shift, set down her ledger, concern etching her brow. What is it? Emerson tossed the phone aside, sinking onto the futon. Mom. Drawing lines in the sand. Again. She rubbed her temples, the scar itching like a fresh wound. It's not new. Same song since I came out to them last year. But now with you. It's personal. Brinley sat beside her, close but not touching, respecting the storm's radius. Came out? You never. Quietly. To them over Thanksgiving wine. Dad stormed out. Mom prayed over me like I was possessed. Emerson's laugh was bitter, laced with old pain. I buried it, focused on the festival win. But this? It's an ultimatum. Choose. Family legacy or us. The word us hung luminous, a fragile star in the dim room. Brinley's hand found hers, intertwining fingers. Legacy isn't blood. It's what we build. But I won't make you choose. Emerson turned, eyes fierce. You don't get to decide that. I choose you every time. But doubt shadowed her words, the weight of a lifetime's conditioning. The days blurred into a tense détente. Harlan's truce held. He showed up sporadically, silent labor in the stockroom, his presence a grudging bridge. Evelyn vanished, her absence a vacuum sucking warmth from the air. The bakery thrived, reviews poured in on Yelp, empowering eats. The boycott fizzling as bellies overruled bigotry. Brinley innovated, a rainbow series of pastries, proceeds to the local shelter, drawing queer couples from El Paso who lingered, sharing stories over matcha lattes. Yet Emerson unraveled thread by thread. Sleepless nights poring over case files, her sabbatical extended into obsession. Arguments flared over small things. Brinley's long hours, Emerson's clipped responses. You're punishing me for their sins, Brinley accused one evening, as rain lashed the windows like accusations. Emerson recoiled, voice raw. No, imskarat. Of losing everything. You rebuilt this place from ashes. What if I can't rebuild them? The vulnerability cracked something in Brinley. A mirror to her own fears. She pulled Emerson close, their embrace a harbor in the gale. Then we rebuild us. First. Intimacy deepened, not in passion's fire but emotional braids. Long drives to white sands, where gypsum dunes swallowed footsteps, letting them voice buried hurts. Emerson confessed the isolation of Austin. Hookups masking loneliness, her queerness a footnote in activist circles. Brinley shared Tommy's custody battles post-accident, the nights she cried into pillows, vowing resilience for them both. Spring unfurled tentative, Ocotillo blooming red against the mesas. The conflict crested at Easter, the town's high holy chaos of processions and pozole pots. Brinley planned a community bake-off, inviting all. A neutral ground for mending. Harlan committed, even Evelyn received an olive branch. A handwritten note from Emerson, tucked into a loaf of pan dulce. Mom, faith without love is hollow. Meet me halfway. Evelyn arrived unannounced, slipping in during prep, her face gaunt under the fluorescent hum. I came for the bread, she said stiffly, avoiding eyes. But she stayed, peeling potatoes with mechanical precision, the kitchen's rhythm coaxing words. I prayed for guidance, she murmured to Brinley, knife flashing. God spoke of mercy, not judgment. Brinley paused, rolling pin still. Mercy's a choice, Mrs. Whitaker. Every day. Harlan joined later, the four of them an uneasy quartet, passing utensils like peace offerings. Emerson watched, hope flickering. For a moment it worked. Laughter over a collapsed soufflé. Harlan's gruff joke about resurrection dough. But betrayal's shadow loomed long. That night, after the bake-off's triumph, blue ribbons and backslaps, Evelyn cornered Emerson in the alley, the air thick with cooling coals. I came for you, daughter. But seeing her, venom seeped in, old habits dying hard. She's poison. Leave her or I'll expose it all. The liens were extortion, borderline fraud. The church lawyers agree. Emerson's world tilted. You'd destroy Dad's legacy to save it? For what? Your version of holy? Evelyn's eyes hardened, tears unshed. For your soul. Choose. The ultimatum echoed, amplified. Emerson fled to the river, boots sinking in mud, sobs racking as cottonwoods whispered indifference. Brinley found her at dawn, curled on the bank, phone clutched like a grenade. Tell me, Brinley urged, wrapping her in a blanket. Emerson's confession spilled. The threat? Evelyn's alliance with a zealous attorney sniffing for loopholes. They'll sue. Tie us in court for years. Ruin everything you've built. Brinley's face paled, but resolve steeled her. Then we fight. Together. No. Emerson pulled away, voice fracturing. I can't, I won't drag you through that. It's my mess. The chasm yawned. So what? You walk? For them. Emerson stood, mud caking her jeans. I need time. To fix this my way. She kissed Brinley's forehead, fleeting as a mayfly. I love you. But love isn't enough. She drove to her parents' ranch that morning, the parting a wound that bled slow. Brinley returned to the bakery alone, the ovens mocking her with their empty heat. Tommy hugged her tight, sensing the fracture. She'll come back, sis. Storms pass. But storms in the desert carve canyons. Weeks dragged, each dawn a ritual of endurance. Brinley poured into the bakery, expanding the menu with Emerson-inspired twists, like pecan tosses infused with Texas bourbon notes. Customers noticed her pallor, offering casseroles and prayers. Harlan appeared more, his silences companionable. Em's stubborn, he grunted one afternoon, stacking flour sacks. Like her ma. But she loves deep. Give her rope. Evelyn's lawsuit materialized in May. A summons delivered with the morning mail. Claims of fraudulent acquisition, demanding reversal and damages. The town divided, picket lines reformed but supporters swelled. A petition circling with 500 signatures. Let love rise. Brinley's lawyer, the clinic pro bono, prepped for war. We got this, liens were public record. But it'll hurt. The high point came unbidden. A letter from Emerson postmarked Austin. I'm fighting from here. Joined a firm specializing in queer family law. Took your story to a podcast. It's going viral. Hold the fort. I'm coming home. All the way. Hope sparked, fragile as mesquite bloom. But climax demands crescendo. The court date loomed in June, under relentless sun that baked the courthouse steps. Brinley arrived in her Sunday best. A linen dress from the thrift, hair braided with ribbons. Harlan and Evelyn sat front row, faces masks of resolve. Emerson, absent, her seat empty beside Brinley. The judge, a wiry woman with silver braids, called order. Evelyn's attorney rose, spinning a tale of deceit, family torn asunder. Brinley testified steady. The firing sting, the lien's legitimacy, the bakery's rebirth as haven. Then Harlan stood. Unscripted, voice booming. Your Honor, I dropped the suit. It was my doing, the theft, the hate. This woman's more Whitaker than I ever was. Gasps rippled. Evelyn buried her face, shoulders shaking. The gavel fell. Case dismissed, with admonishments for all. Brinley exhaled, the room spinning. Outside, Emerson waited on the steps, suit crisp, eyes red-rimmed. Surprise witness, she said, grinning through tears. Had to time it right. Their embrace swallowed the world, bystanders cheering, Harlan clapping Emerson's back, even Evelyn approaching tentative. Forgive an old fool? She whispered to Brinley. Always, Brinley replied, pulling her in. But Joy's peak previews descent. That night, celebrating at the bakery with tamales and tequila, Emerson pulled Brinley aside. One more fight. Mom's cancer stage 3. Diagnosed last month. That's why the push. Fear. The revelation gutted Evelyn, frail under her bluster. The bigotry a shield against mortality. Brinley nodded, stealing. Then we heal. All of us. Summer settled over Las Cruces like a heavy rebozo, the air shimmering with heat mirages that danced off the asphalt. Evelyn's diagnosis cast a pall, transforming the ranch house from fortress to hospice. Infusions in the living room, Harlan's mustache grayer overnight as he learned to blend smoothies without complaint. Emerson shuttled between court filings and caregiving. Her law firm remote set up a lifeline. Brinley wove the bakery's rhythm around them. Deliveries of nutrient-packed muffins laced with turmeric and ginger. Quiet evenings where she'd knead dough while Evelyn napped. The two women finding fragile common ground in recipes passed like heirlooms. You're good to her, Evelyn said one afternoon, voice thin as she stirred a pot of atoll on the stove. Her hands, once clenched in prayer, now trembled slightly. Emerson. I see it now, the light in her eyes. I was blind, chasing shadows. Brinley measured cornmeal, the scent grounding. Shadows pass. It's the light we choose. Evelyn's laugh rasped, wistful. My mother said that. About faith. Guess I forgot. She paused, eyes distant. The church. They turned on me too when the news broke. Called it karma. But you? You baked for the protesters even. Brinley shrugged, a small victory. Bread feeds bodies. Love feeds souls. Can't have one without the other. Harlan, eavesdropping from the porch, grunted approval later over coffee. Your family now, girl. Official. He slid a deed across the table. Not the bakeries, but a plot of land by the river, his wedding gift to them. Build what you want. A home. Tears pricked Brinley's eyes. The gesture mended more than acres. Tommy thrived amid the shifts, landing a scholarship to UNM's engineering program. His pride swelling as Brinley walked him to orientation. You taught me grit, sis. Now go live yours. Emerson proposed in September, under a harvest moon that gilded the dunes. No ring, just a key to the river plot, engraved our rise. Marry me? Not in spite of the mess, but because of it. Brinley's yes was a vow, sealed with a kiss that tasted of sand and eternity. Evelyn's decline accelerated with fall's chill, leaves turning gold like alchemical promise. The family gathered often. Potlucks in the bakery's back room, where stories flowed freer than wine. Evelyn shared her youth. A tomboy in the 60s, crushing on the girl's basketball star, shamed into silence by a preacher father. I chose safe, she confessed, hand in Brinley's. You chose true. Teach me that. Brinley did in small graces. Pride flags in the bakery window unmolested. Invitations to the local queer youth group, where Evelyn volunteered awkwardly at first, then with quiet zeal. Winter returned, softer this time. Luminarias flickering like prayers answered. Evelyn passed on Christmas Eve, surrounded by them all, Harlan's head bowed, Emerson's hand in hers, Brinley reciting a Navajo blessing her abuela had taught. Walk in beauty, she whispered as Evelyn's breath stilled, a smile lingering. The funeral was a tapestry. Church hymns mingled with mariachi, mourners from both worlds. Harlan spoke of redemption, his voice cracking. She found her way home. Through love. Grief wove through spring, but so did growth. The bakery expanded. A cafe annex with bookshelves stocked with queer lit and local histories. Emerson's podcast episode exploded, drawing tourists who snapped selfies with the fired baker mural Tommy painted on the sidewall. Brinley rising from ashes, dough in hand, rainbow arc overhead. Their wedding came in June on the river plot. Adobe arch draped in wild roses, the Rio Grande murmuring benediction. Harlan walked Emerson down the aisle, Tommy best man with a speech that roasted gently. Vows exchanged under cottonwoods. In flower and fire, in lawsuits and lullabies, I choose you. The reception spilled into the bakery, tables groaning under tres leches towers and conchas cakes. As stars pricked the sky, Brinley and Emerson danced slow, the town's lights twinkling like fireflies. "You bought more than a bakery," Emerson murmured cheek to cheek. "You bought us back." Brinley smiled, the desert wind carrying their laughter. "Worth every crumb." In the years that followed, Las Cruces changed slow as seasons, bigotry's embers banked, but never extinguished. Harlan retired to the porch, telling tales to grandkids yet to come. Tommy engineered solar ovens for the bakery, sustainable as their love. Brinley and Emerson built a life layered like strudel. Law cases won, loaves risen, nights tangled in sheets that smelled of home. Betrayal's scar faded, a reminder etched in resilience. For in the end, the truest stories aren't of triumph alone, but of the human ache, the forgiveness needed in the love that rises unburnt. And in the high desert, where sunsets bled crimson over the mesas, they baked on.